And at this time, Mr. McLean will do the invocation. I'll stand for the invocation, remain standing for the pledge to the flag. Mr. McLean?
Yeah, at this time I'd like to dispense with the normal invocation and just take a short pause to remember the victims from yesterday's terror attack in New York City. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. McLean. Roll call, Mr. Hanlon. Please note that all members of the City Council are here, with the exception of Dr. McGuire, and he is excused tonight. We're joined by Juan Camacho, our solicitor, and Mr. Glazier, our controller. Courtesy of the floor. If you're speaking for yourself, 3 minutes. Speaking for a group or organization, 5 minutes. Mr. Hirschman, welcome.
Thank you. 405 North Silver Street, Allentown, Pennsylvania. Is the contract for the city fleet going to be, repairs going to be on the agenda next week?
That'll be, it's tentatively on the schedule for 6 p.m. contract approval, and eventually next Wednesday, November 8th, at 6 o'clock.
Mr. Chairman, well, my concern is public safety. As you heard the fire union representative last week, the fire department's concerns on repairment of the vehicles that they have at the city garage, I think is a big issue. Especially me as a homeowner. I think all the other council of property owners, homeowners also. I think we have to look at it before we award a contract to a private firm. City of Allentown can do it. I know that finance assistant public works director come out and said that it would be $300,000 more if we award the contract and city employees don't do it. But Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask you as chairman to make that information public, that the public works director claims that you can save the city $200,000. As you know, those employees over there are also members of SIU, and I'm sure they get the same benefits as city employees, wages as city employees, and everything else. So I think that would all be equal. So I don't see how there would be $300,000 savings because the company can make a profit. We don't have to make a profit. So I'm asking you, Mr. Chairman, to make the information public as the public works director has, and also as a concern of the fire department was a fleet downtime. And I'm asking you, Mr. Chairman, if you could make that record available from last year for it. That's part of the requirements of the contract they have with the city. They're supposed to provide a monthly report, fleet downtime report, hours of monthly availability, downtime by category for fleet availability. And I'm asking you, Mr. Chairman, before you award, review the contract, get all this information, and also make it public. And I don't see how the savings could be what they're saying could be, and we have the same employees if we operate it or in a private firm operates it. And since I have 33 seconds, I'm going to ask you, and Mr. Chairman, my concern is bonding of city employees. I send a request, make sure that all city employees are bonded, are supposed to be bonded. And I get a response back, when I bonded, Mr. Russell, is that an average statement that was made?
Which one in particular?
City employees, like you, and the controller, and finance director, budget, treasurer, accounting for all city employees. And then you responded back, am I right to know that there's no record of funding for each people?
Yes.
So,
Go ahead, Mr. Russell.
If we may on this one, we have discovered in the process of, this question actually raised some very important issues, and that there is not sufficient bonding for a couple of us, and we need to get it fixed. I've had that sitting on my whiteboard for a while and just want to get all the players together to make sure we get it taken care of. I don't think it will be a very costly thing, and I don't think it's going to be long in delaying, but he raised a salient point, and we got to get it taken care of. So my appreciation to Mr. Hirschman for raising that issue.
my concern was when you read it in the morning call, and then we had a lot of articles on us being sued a lot, and that raised my issue, so I referred to administrative code, but finance required why I tried to bring it to Mr. Hartwell's attention. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Hirschman. Mr. Hunchard?
Good evening, Glenn Musicker, South Allentown. I handed out some flyers tonight with some information. Hopefully, you probably had that information before, but it's nice to review it on the contract between the fleet, for fleet management with Centera. And I also had, part of that handout was information which Mr. Glazier reported on last week. I mean, he mildly said that there's been some, what they called maybe over weaknesses in the contract. Weaknesses, if he was charged 5% a year, I don't think his weaknesses would be as weak as he says it is. In 2014, the non-targeted fees went up 5% plus CPI, I guess. 15, 5%, 16, 5%, 17, 5%, non-targeted side. I mean, that drove those prices up to $43 an hour on the non-targeted side, and we don't know what that number is because we haven't received it. In addition to his reporting, which I have to compliment him for doing what he did a half-decent job. IRS reporting, I would go crazy because you did a good job. Tolling service contract, higher with Centera than with the city. I mean, there's the fleet credit cards. Who gets fleet credit cards? I mean, why are I don't understand that part of his audit, but, and there was also a couple vehicles in there that have Sirius XM radios in. I mean, why are we paying that? That's a couple $100 if you pay the full price. I mean, unless you can discount it. You're a senior citizen, maybe you can get a break. Anyway, I'm glad he did the report, but there's a lot of things in here that shouldn't be happening. The 5% automatic, I don't see anywhere. I was looking for addendums in this lease. Matter of fact, I have a right to know about addendums, which is a day or two late, but I'm trying to get that. If there was actually a change authorizing them to do the 5% in non-targeted money. I don't think there's a limit on it. I don't know. He didn't report a limit, so I'm assuming there isn't any. Another thing came to mind in the Centera agreement. There's a page in there that calls for FMIS reports. I don't know what that means. Does administration know what that means? It's a monthly report put out by Centera, I guess, to the city. Calls for the vehicle master list monthly. Those reports exist? Do they exist?
Yeah, and I believe they were all responded to with the right to knows that were put in.
And then on the second page, there's a management monthly report. You get all these reports?
All of them.
So can we get them without right to knows, or must I write 15 right to knows?
I believe you did a right to know for just about everything already, but.
No, don't go there.
I'm sure you did.
We haven't done that. But what I'm saying is, if concil wants to dig into this, or anybody, there's a lot of information here, if this is accurate, I mean, but we haven't seen it. So, I mean, and nobody, even Mr. Glazier's report didn't mention this report, a series of reports. If this was online, it'd be great. I wouldn't have to write all these right to knows, which maybe we have to, but.
Ms. Sanders, go ahead.
Yes.
Regarding the fleet credit cards, and Craig can correct me if I'm wrong, but the motorcycles, we do not have fuel for them. So they use credit cards to be able to get fuel on the open market out on the street.
Yes, you're correct.
So that's one of the uses of the credit cards.
So every police officer that has a,
Motorcycles.
Motorcycles.
Motorcycles use high tests, and the
Yes, I
city
understand.
doesn't buy high tests.
okay, but who gets the credit cards? Every
police officers.
Every police
They're
officer,
riding the
No,
bike,
the ones that are the
motorcycle cops.
the motorcycle policeman.
Yes.
Well, something getting to.
Mhm.
And how many are there roughly? 3, 4?
Three.
There are 3 motorcycles.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
And
And then
then there's one fleet, one for trips where somebody has to go to a conference, so that way the fuel
So that'll
is
save you.
purchased that way, and that way there's no tax paid.
and who gets the Sirius XM radio? Can we, I mean,
Well, I think.
the city doesn't have I mean, we're broke, let's face it,
What?
we're broke. we're in a deficiency spending. So I mean, just to have these extra frivolous things out there is not proper. So I mean, it's nice to have everybody gets one, but, so anyway, okay.
I think, obviously, what you're saying tonight and what Mr. Hirschman just said earlier, next week when we do the contract, review of this, I think we'll have a pretty lively discussion. And I'm sure you and Mr. Hirschman will be here. We want you to be here.
I hope so. But the thing is, we have to have the data. You can't analyze it. If he's gonna present the data, we should sit down and look at this data that he's gonna have. I mean, if he can prove that this is cheaper, great, I'm all for him.
Stay tuned.
I don't care who he gives it to.
Stay tuned.
This is gonna be great.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Mr. Hahn?
Good evening, 2016 East Highland Street. I want to start out by saying to all the public officials, you should always err in the side of public safety, whether it's personnel or equipment, on every incident or issue. That's free advice. Now we'll get down to the nitty-gritty. I sent to Mike Hanlon a copy that he would send to all council with the questions that will be re-asked at the next meeting. To give you an idea, I'm just gonna give you the headings. He has the copy sent to him now that he could forward if he wants to. And that is the procedure rules, and there's explained how were the extensions of the contract done, and there's a list of pieces, who overseed it, who agreed to it, who knew about it, and who didn't. That's one.
You're talking about the garage contract.
The garage contract.
Go ahead.
The other one is the report that was mentioned that Glazier did with the gates and the information that either he didn't have, or didn't get, or didn't relate to the contract. So then I could ask them, giving you time, or if Mr. Glazier needs a copy, whoever needs a copy, Mr. Hanlon can refer to that. Now, the council has the right to take control of this problem and make the administration responsible for the lack of timely results. And that goes to the safety issue with the firemen, but I'm not gonna give the list. It's in the copy that's gonna be sent to you. All this can be changed in an instant by whatever you vote. So it can go back to the control factor of what gets fixed, what doesn't. I use as an example a $15,000 engine or a $300,000 fire truck that has the $15,000 engine in it. That's one of the examples. The request for equipment, in the contract, it says mileage, repairs over 80% of the value and all this stuff. And how does council play a part in deciding if they want to spend a couple $100,000 for a piece of equipment, or spend over the agreement in the contract and not buy a new one, but repair it and save $200,000? I mean, I'm just giving all these points that are coming up. The oversight, who looks over this and keeps control? And there's a whole lot of question that goes with that. Now the question comes up, if nobody's hiding anything, why are we having such a hard time just getting the question? Why the right to know? Bring the information out. Another explain how the total money was spent on the contract, because there seems to be an incentive. If we save money and don't end the section, then there's money that can be returned back to the city. And that hasn't been explained, and why it's in the contract. It could be as high as 70-30 split of money left over. If anybody wants to comment on that procedure, it's in the contract. But you have to read the contract and understand it, including the labor rates. If we want to use the labor rate of the employees here, but we send equipment to an outside guy that's charging $100 or $125 an hour, plus the towing to get the equipment there, if it's can't be completed in-house, that's a lot more expensive than the in-house labor to fix it. This is in the contract too.
I got 30 seconds.
Okay, we talked about the 70-30 money split that was involved. If you read what's in there and follow through and come up with the answers, and we can go over this, I'll be happy. And that ends my little.
Thank you, sir. You're done already.
Time's up.
Mr. Ritter, name and address. Good job. Name and address for the record.
Don Ringer, West Allentown.
No, address. That tells me nothing.
Today it's 1801 Liberty Street.
That tells me something.
Okay. Can I ask Mr. Glazier a question, sir?
You have to direct your question to me and
Mr.
then.
O'Connell, I would like for you to ask Mr. Glazier if he has presented a list of all the vehicles that are taken home by city employees.
Mr. Glazer, you care to answer that?
Do my best, Mr. President. We presented to council, and I believe the work papers as well. The question was, with regards to the ordinance, how many sedans were taken home? We answered that question. And then I think the work papers showed the other non-sedan vehicles that were also taken home.
Mr. President, have we showed who is taking home with vehicles? Who's taking home the vehicles?
That was not the request at this point, right, Mr. Glazer? Mr. Ringer, I don't want to cut you off, but.
I still have 2 minutes.
No, but you, courtesy of the floor is to speak on any items that are not on the agenda. And Bill 64, we're talking about a word change, but I'm gonna let you finish. Go ahead.
Well, I just
There's
think,
different semantics.
I
Go
just
ahead.
think that Mr. Glazier has been very disrespectful to Mr. Hirschman in particular by not submitting these lists. We've asked for them for, I guess, 6 months now, and we all know that this could be done overnight. We all know that Mr. Glazier and Mr. Mayor are tied together, so maybe that's part of the problem. And I submit to you that in 2 weeks, if we come down here, I'm sure we'll have a list, because the election will be over. I mean, this is, who's,
I actually have the list posted on the agenda, so it's on the website.
it is?
Yes.
Okay. Who's paying for the gas on these vehicles? Who's paying for the Sirius radios?
The city.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. Again, the city's broke, you know? We have people driving these vehicles 30, 40 minutes to work, back and forth. I mean, something's wrong here. We had Mr. McLean, Mr. Hendricks, they lived in the city. They didn't live 30, 40 minutes away. And we're paying for the gas on these vehicles. Something's not right here. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Mr. Ringer. Okay, anyone else courtesy to the floor? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the minutes by common consent. So moved. Second? Okay. And we will go to any old business? Communications. Anything for communications? Mr. Highline, I do want to, we had an executive session, the solicitor was not there, but we did have an executive session last Tuesday, informational session only, concerning the contract for the garage, okay? Solicitor was not there, we made no decisions, it was informational session only, but I do want to make that public. We had that last Tuesday, October 24th, Reports from committee. Outside the Public Works Committee, which met this evening, there are no committee meetings scheduled at this time. We will deal with issues during our budget sessions. And City Council will have a meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. We are to receive our budget books, I believe, by tomorrow at 4 o'clock. And I'm sure they'll be delivered to Mr. Hanlon. But City Council will be holding a meeting tomorrow night, November 2nd, at 6 o'clock, and we will start reviewing the budget. Appointments, Ms. Affa, a couple of appointments for this evening.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Mr. President. We have electricians exam board, 2 applicants for that, and 1 for human relations. The first would be James Carapaloo for electrician examining board. His term expires 1/24/2020. Do you have any comments from my colleagues on Mr. Carapaloo? Seeing none. Anything from the public? Seeing none, Mr. Hanlon, can take a vote, please.
Okay, Mr. Carapaloo, Ms. Appa,
Yes.
Mr. Reedy,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. McLean,
Yes.
Ms. Moda,
Yes.
and Mr. O'Connell.
Yes.
6 yeas and no nays.
All right, and we also have electrician examining board for, the applicant is Michael Taylor. His term expires 1/24/2020. Do I have any comments from my colleagues on Michael Taylor? Seeing none, anyone from the public? Seeing none, Mr. Hanlon, can I ask for a vote, please?
Okay, on the appointment of Mr. Taylor to the board, Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. McLean,
Yes.
Ms. Moda,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell.
Yes.
And Ms. Appa.
Yes.
Before you go on, I know Mr. Carapaloo, he's not here, I know in person. Is Michael Taylor here? Okay, go ahead, continue, Ms. Apple.
And then this one here is for Human Relations Commission, Shalon Buskirk. The term expires 1/5/2019. Do I have any comments from my colleagues? From the public? Seeing none, Mr. Hanlon?
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. McLean,
Yes.
Ms. Moda,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell,
Yes.
Ms. Appa,
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
6 yeas and no nays.
Is Shalon here? No? Okay.
Excellent job, Ms. Appa. We now go to ordinances for final passage. Bill 62, Mr. Hanlon, read Bill 62.
Bill 62 amends the capital fund budget to provide for supplemental appropriation of $135,000 from a PennDOT TAP grant for pedestrian safety improvements at Trexler and Wildwood Schools.
Okay, Mr. McLean, that was in your public works meeting earlier this evening.
Yes, it was, and it was recommended favorably to the full council.
Thank you. Any comments from my colleagues on Bill 62? Comments from the public on Bill 62? Mr. Hanlon, we're going to use our iPads to vote on the ordinances. No?
All right, I'll do a quick voice vote.
Okay, go ahead, do it.
Where am I? Mr. McLean,
Yes.
Ms. Moda,
Yes. There is.
All right, we'll do it now. We'll use the iPad.
Use that one?
Yeah. Up and running. Got yours in there?
yeah, Mr. McLean, I'll pencil you in.
Yep.
Mr. President, I
very much. Bill 62. All right, well, Mr. Hamlin, we'll go to resolutions for final passage. R-181.
R-181 authorizes an encroachment from a pedestrian bridge to a parking structure at 520 Hamilton Street.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hartzell, want to refer that to Mr. Messenger or Mr. Berger, or do you want to take that one yourself?
I do think I will have Mr. Messenger or Mr. Berger, however, it will be Mr. Berger. I'm doing a lot of delegation tonight, I can see.
Mr. Berger, welcome again.
Thank you. This encroachment is it's for a pedestrian bridge from the new 520 Hamilton Street building is what they're calling it right now. It's the old Rock building. This pedestrian bridge will be from the second floor of that building to the second floor of the parking lot along the rear of the property, or the side, or however you want to look at it. There is a set of plans that were attached with the encroachment. Again, this is going to be for ease of access for whatever office building or office and the residential apartments in that building.
Who's paying for it?
City Center.
How much?
I'm not sure what the cost is.
Okay, okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Berger. Comments from my colleagues? Seeing none. Comments from the public? Seeing none. Mr. Hamlin, your iPads are working. Vote on R-181.
Mr. McLean.
Yes.
I think I marked you absent at the beginning instead of McGuire, so that's all.
Oh, nice.
Thanks for the confusion.
Dr. McGuire's a little younger, though.
You should be the last one.
So that's why it's not coming up, huh? Interesting, okay. Now you get your attention, Mr. Hamlin. Okay, what's the vote? 6-0?
Yep.
Okay, 6-0. R-181 passes. Mr. Hamlin, ordinances for introduction, Bill 63.
Bill 63 amends the Code of Ethics by adding 171.15, mailers and communications prohibited during election season, basically prohibiting elected officials from using city resources for mass mailings and mass communications during election season.
Okay, thank you, sir. Comments from my colleagues about Bill 63?
It has to be sent, are you gonna vote on it today? Are we gonna vote on this?
No, I was going to send it to committee. Comments from my colleagues? Nothing. Comments from the public? Ms. Affleck, we're going to send that to your Human Resources Administration Appointments Committee. All right. Okay, Bill 64, Mr. Hanlon.
Bill 64 amends Article 121.05 city registered vehicles by changing the word sedan to the word vehicles in 2 places.
Okay. Comments from my colleagues on Bill 64?
My only
Oh,
comment,
Mr. McLean, go ahead.
this is strictly to make Mr. Glazer's job a lot easier.
Right. We're changing it from sedan to vehicles. Okay, any other comments from my colleagues? Comments from the public? Mr. Hendricks will refer that to public safety.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Resolutions for introduction, there are none. Anything under new business?
I have one.
Mr. Hendricks, new business?
Yeah, I had made a request, the last meeting to the controller's office about doing a, audit on those mailers that did go out relative to town hall meetings being held. And I had requested that that information be available tonight. I understand it's not, so I would respectfully request that that could be available by the end of this week, Mr. Glazer.
Mr. President, Mr. Hendricks, I will communicate that to the office in charge, and hope for the best, sir.
Yeah. And my understanding is that this request was sent to that office back on September 25th, so it's certainly And at that time, the information was available pending approval from the mayor's office. However, my understanding that was not forthcoming. So at your request now, with absent the mayor's request and not needing such a approval, hopefully that will be complied with. And I thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, sir. I will follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. Thank you, Mr. Beige. Anything for good and welfare? Any motion to adjourn?
Yes.
So moved. Have a good evening.
Wrap.
Roger.